So, Rhys, we're basically halfway through the Indy series at the moment. Tell me, what are your thoughts? Do you think this was a good decision of a series to cover?
You chose wisely.
Oh, nice. Oh, well, look, I had some thoughts that maybe instead of doing the next series that we were planning on covering, did you instead want to maybe tackle the Fast and Furious movies, maybe?
You chose poorly.
Gotta be fucking kidding.
Here's the first movie.
Did you know I'm utterly insane?
Peel that pig and slice him thick.
The body count is always bigger.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
And the fucking trees walked in those movies.
Hi, doggy.
What a story, Mark.
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled.
It's just like your opinion, man.
Life moves pretty fast.
If you want your sequel to become a franchise.
37 dicks.
In a row?
I'm your number one fan.
G'day, ladies and gents. Welcome back to another episode of Marathon Me with your host, Kane.
And Rhys.
And today we're covering the final entry in the Indiana Jones series. Well, the final as of 1989 to like 2007, 2008 with Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. A film that, in many ways, served as the perfect ending in a lot of people's eyes in terms of the original trilogy of Indiana Jones. Rhys, do you have much of a history with this film, since we've talked about our kind of personal histories with the first two? Do you have any specific like memories or anything, or any opinions of younger Rhys with this film?
I probably remember this one the least out of all the Indiana Jones movies from my childhood.
Okay.
As I think that I found it the most boring, because it definitely is probably the slowest that we've seen so far of the Indy movies.
Yeah.
But my memories did not serve me very, very well, and I was really, really eager to jump into it with this sort of gap in my knowledge of this film.
Yeah.
But did you... What did you think of it, rewatching it?
Well, I was similar to you, where this was the one I remembered the least. This was also the one that I watched, like, probably the least as a kid, because I also found it quite slow, and I think my DVD also didn't work for it half the time, so that
that's gonna hold you up then.
Exactly,
definitely.
A little bit of a detriment right there, but this was a film that, like, I've actually seen this film kind of recently before having to do it for the podcast, because I remember watching this once in 2020 and then again back last year, actually, completely just because I felt like it.
You watched it by itself?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay.
I don't know why. I remember watching it by itself and then watching it today. I have the same opinion that I did last year and in 2020. It's a bloody great time, I'll tell you what. It is a really good time. Now, my love for it has kind of died down a tiny bit, because I used to consider this my favourite in the series as of 2020. And there's a lot to love in this series. But however, having watched the first two movies, there are some little minor downgrades in this film, but I feel like that this is nowhere near a massive step down in the Indy pantheon, or at least in terms of the original trilogy. Like, I think this stands just as well with the previous two, I reckon. What about you?
There was something about this one that didn't hit me. It
really?
really didn't. Yeah, and I was shocked, because I as well have heard... I was at a bar the other night, and somebody told me that they think that this is the best one. Like, that it surpasses all the other Indiana Jones movies, including Raiders. But it just, for me, did so little. And I want you, Kane, can you please try and convince me by the end of this episode that it is much better than I thought it was when watching the film?
I shall try my best, good sir. I shall try my best. I'm very interested to see and hear as to why it didn't work for you. I'm very curious about this.
Okay, my main sort of overall takes of why this didn't work for me was because it felt almost too similar to the first one, to Raiders of the Lost Ark, and didn't have the freshness that one had, and didn't seem as cleanly put together as that one.
Right.
And because of that, it felt fairly redundant in when Raiders of the Lost Ark exists.
Okay.
As well as I didn't really love Henry Jones in this.
No.
I didn't really love Indiana Jones. Jones's dad.
No, that is a sin right there, my man. That is a sin.
Yeah, exactly. And I really, really want you to prove me wrong today, Kane. But before you do that, here's a little bit of the trailer.
Nazis. I hate these guys.
Our situation has not improved.
In his search for the Holy Grail.
How dare you kiss me?
Are you crazy? Don't go between them!
Go between them, are you crazy?
Where's my father?
In the belly of that steel beast.
Dad! Junior!
You call this archaeology?
The quest for the Grail is not archaeology. It's a race against evil.
Germany has declared war on the Jones boys.
Those people are trying to kill us.
I know, Dad!
It's a new experience for me.
Happens to me all the time. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Have the adventure of your life. Keeping up with the Joneses.
I'll tell you one thing. My mouth is agape right now because... Okay, explain this. You don't dislike the movie. It just didn't click with you, is what you're saying, yeah?
It did not click with me. I don't dislike it, but it felt not like it felt very sort of new. I am so neutral about this entry into the franchise.
Right, okay.
And it was just like it lacked. It felt like variety. Overall. Even though that there are some really interesting decisions that are made throughout the piece. But overall, like, we can confidently say, right, that this is the slowest of the Indy movies. And it feels like there's a lot more talking in this one and takes a bit longer to get into, like, as in, like, the story to really get into, which I was interested in at the start. But then when it got into it, I wasn't that convinced, you know?
Really? Interesting. Because, like, for me, when the film kind of got itself moving, that's when I was really starting to get invested in it. Like, I think a lot of, like, the stuff... For me, a lot of, like, the talking stuff, it is interesting, but, like... I feel like it was just done better in Raiders and Temple of Doom, and it was done fine here, but once, like, the adventure got going, basically... Well, I'll get into it later, but basically, yeah, when the adventure gets going, when, like, twists are revealed and Henry Jones is brought into the fray, that's when the film kind of picks up a little bit for me. But we'll get to all of that. Let's, I guess, just start from the start. I'm very interested, Rhys. What were your thoughts on the opening with this weird kind of prequel almost to Indiana Jones with River Phoenix?
I know, right? River Phoenix playing young Indy. I quite liked this. I thought it was like a fun cold open with young Indy, and also planted the foundations for the dynamic between Indy and his dad to come later on. And what I really liked about this was that I love how River Phoenix played Indy just like Harrison Ford, I thought. Like,
he's great. He's great in like the little screen time he has. He really embodies like the energy of a young Indiana Jones in this. I will say the only thing that kind of bothers me is that his hair, Indiana Jones, with like this weird kind of like Leo DiCaprio from Titanic hair. Very interesting decision, but hey, you know what? We'll roll with it. I couldn't see young Harrison Ford going around with that hair, but you know what? If that's what young Indy was rocking at the time, I can't hate on it. Better than my haircuts when I was that age.
You also got to think about the timeline, that at this time it would be like 1910, like around that sort of point. So like looking pretty stylish for like early 1900s.
My word, yeah, Jesus. I think what also really works about this is that with a lot of prequels that bother me, like you had a similar thing where you watched like what was it, Insidious Chapter 3, and the whole movie was like focused on like planting seeds and references to like the origin of this character and why they do this or why they wear that, like
asking all the questions that nobody asked in the first place.
Exactly, and like like I hate that kind of stuff. Like, I just think like shit like that is so unnecessary. What I think works for me because like this intro basically does the same thing. You know, it shows like how he got his hat, how he got the whip, how he even got the scar on his shin. I think what works for me in this compared to like an actual, you know, full-length movie that pulls all this kind of nonsense is that it's quick, it's concise, it's short, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. It doesn't feel like it doesn't just feel like an episode like the Member Berries episode in South Park where it's like, hey, remember this, remember that. Like, wouldn't you rather be watching like an actual like Indiana Jones an actual like movie instead of an origin story? Like, we get our origin story, but you also get the rest of the movie, a regular Indiana Jones adventure. The young Indiana Jones stuff is just a little appetizer for what's to come.
I was just about to, you know, I was gonna say the same thing. Yeah, it's like it doesn't hover on it for too long. It just is there, and if you miss it, it's blink and you miss it. And if you do, it doesn't really take away that much from it. There's like, it feels like when you see a lot of this being done now, that there's almost a pause afterwards, like 3 seconds for people that in the cinema go, oh, look, that's why this happened. So like an example that I brought up to Kane the other day when I was watching Insidious Chapter 3, a prequel to this franchise that I find fascinating that there's even a franchise of. So the two like people that are usually helping with these sort of like clairvoyant sort of exorcism-y things are Specs and Tucker, and they're both the like comic relief people of this franchise. And in the first 2 movies, they're wearing white shirts and black ties, like looking fairly formal, and they're wearing casual clothes in Chapter 3. And there's a scene where where like Elise, who is their boss, is like, you know what? I think you guys are dressed a little bit too casual. And they're like, what do you think we're gonna wear then? And she's like, I'm thinking maybe white shirt, black ties. And that's one of the last lines of the fucking movie. So then it's like, that's what we're left to think about as the credits roll. Like,
I love to think that like the way that you described it, that's actually how the dialogue goes in the movie. Like their voices, like they sound normal and they act like their characters throughout the whole movie. And when that scene happens, it's just like they just start doing like your whole voice and all that. Like that's the way.
It just
like,
sounds
that's
extremely cartoonish.
Because I've never seen Insidious Chapter 3, nor do I really have any interest in watching it. But, like, in my headcanon, that's how the scene goes, and that's the way it's going to stay.
Yeah, exactly. But you're right, that it's like the quick hastiness of it, that it's almost like it's a garnish. It's not the actual main meal that it's trying to serve.
Yeah. And plus also, like, it's also just a fun little set piece as well. Very, like, almost Wild West a little bit. Like, you know, the location, like, in the Utah mountains, them running on a train. Hell, even, like, the dudes that Indy's robbing and all that, they're dressed up like a bunch of bloody outlaws and all that. It's insane. It's really cool to see. It's funny, one of the guys wearing, like, a flat, like, you remember the guy that's wearing the flat cap in the opening?
Oh, yeah?
Kind of reminded me a little bit of, like, the lead singer from AC/DC. I don't know why. I saw that and I was just like, well, that's funny. I like that shit.
You're picking you're finding all these, like, background musicians in these 80s movies that we're watching recently.
Yeah, I know. Hey, man, I told you, I'm a lover of both film and music. So if I need to insert some niche music stuff references into one of the movies that we're talking about, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it, baby.
It lines up with the timeline, right? That it's around like the 1910s, like early 1900s. That they're not that far removed from the sort of outlaw Wild West days.
Exactly. It's literally like, because like this opening takes place in 1912. This is probably, I think, a year after the original Red Dead Redemption, which takes place in 1911. What? So it does kind of make sense because like that era was like kind of like when the Wild West was like fully just dying out. So it's really fucking cool. So it does make sense that, like, you know, people in like those kind of areas would still be, you know, acting that certain way, dressing that certain way. I think we should maybe not acting like outlaws, but I think we should bring back, you know, outlaw attire, you know, like the Wild West attire, the hats, the outfits, just bring it all back, I reckon.
Yeah,
I'm
the
a
guns,
big fan
the shooting people on the street.
I'm a big fan of Gunslinger Corps. I'm a big fan of that stuff. I think we should bring it back.
Well, look, one thing that I really, really loved about like River Phoenix seeming to embody Harrison Ford, or like, the performance of Indiana Jones so well and so accurately, is that it made me think, like, at the start, I'm thinking, is River Phoenix like acting too much like an adult where he should be acting like a child right now? And then as the scene went on, I realized, no, it's that Harrison Ford plays Indiana Jones like he's a big kid. And
yeah, literally.
It gave, like, how freaking cool is this, that a scene where Harrison Ford is not even in it, and it's just young child Indiana Jones, played by a different actor, it gave me a better appreciation for the performance of Harrison Ford as Indy.
He's just that good, man. He's just that good, and like that, like, iconic of a character that, like, even though a different actor is playing him in the opening of this film, his aura and energy is still there. And also just, like, obviously credits to River Phoenix for, like, just, like, doing a great, like, embodiment of Harrison Ford's performance in this. I think also it kind of makes sense why he would maybe, like, young Indy would feel a little more adult, because obviously in the film we kind of get like an idea of his kind of home life in this, with his strained relationship with his father, how he was kind of like not abandoned as a child, but like very like neglected, so he had to kind of fend for himself and learn independence, as is discussed later in the film. So it does make sense why he would seem a lot more grown up in the opening of this film, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And it does frame this movie extremely well, so I do have to give it that, without a doubt.
To finish off with the opening, I will say, because like, it is great that, like, you know, like, showing us the little bits and pieces of, like, you know, Indy's, like, whip and scar and hat and all that. It's all great. It's not drawn out too much. Dude, when like, the lead bad guy, the lead outlaw gives him the hat, and like, right before when he said the line, he's like, "You lost today, kid, but doesn't mean you gotta like it." Dude, every time I see that scene, I start cheering, bro. It's such just like, I hate that like that prequel pandering, like, remember this, remember that, look how cool this is kind of meme. But like, sometimes if they do it just right, it hits so hard. And Spielberg, he did it just right when he gets the hats, and then it covers young River Phoenix's face, and then transitions into Harrison Ford on the boat. Oh, so fucking good. I love it. It's just a great way to just get us right back in the saddle with Harrison.
It
tell you what.
It is a great way to introduce that, and it does hit. That does hit hard.
Oh yeah. And then it's also great, like, that opening, because it's connected to the boat scene is connected to the actual opening, because it's Indy trying to get the cross of the cross of Cortez or whatever it was, that he was trying to steal earlier, that then he got taken from him. So it was a nice way to kind of have it not feel like a cold open, this opening actually connect to older Indiana Jones, not just like having it be there just for, like, you know, for origin's sake, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it
totally.
actually had a bit of a purpose, a little bit, you know?
This scene of him on the boat, though, of, like, Harrison Ford is now here, it's like the actual Indiana Jones movie is, like, started. It feels like it goes by so quickly.
I know. I remember this scene being so much longer, but maybe that's just because the Lego game, the Lego game version of this level was really hard, and maybe, but I think that was because in the game, like, the boat is, like, rocking and all that, and I remember, like, it'd make my brother and I really seasick, like, motion sickness watching it. I remember Nicholas telling me this, like, when we were little kids, and so when he told me, I started feeling that. I'm like, oh god, yeah, you're right, man, I don't feel good. And
so you're getting PTSD, like, motion sickness during the scene?
Surprisingly, not anymore, but every time I watch that scene, I always think it's a lot longer than it actually is. So I'm on the same page as you. So, like, I'm trying to get comfortable in my bed. Next thing I know, the boat's blown up and the scene's over. It's insane.
And that is the last action that we're going to get for almost like half an hour at that point as well.
True.
There's a big dip now in, like, it trying to take its time, the movie. We go and we go back into, you know, like, seeing, it follows the same structure as the first film, with now it's following Indy as a professor, and But I honestly really was compelled by these moments. It does the same thing as well with, like, Indy being confronted by someone to tell him all these different sort of things to do with our main artifact of the movie, the Holy Grail.
My God, yeah.
And the description of this, I am there, hung on every last word of what they're saying, because holy shit, what a badass artifact, right? What a badass relic.
I know, it's so fucking sick.
To find this Holy Grail that contains the blood of Christ that then, upon consumption, will grant immortality. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Immortality, as they quote, eternal life. Like, it is, I think that is like because like this was originally going to be like the final Indy film. This was the final Indy film. So like, I think going after something as like, because I feel like this is like probably like, you know, like the most, if you're going to pick an artifact, you pick something that, like, it has a lot of weight to it. Like, the Ark of the Covenant had a lot of weight to it. The stones, admittedly, didn't have, like, a lot of weight to it, but, like, in the context of the movie, it did, you know, given the stakes of, like, you know, like, we need the stones to save the village and all that. So they had their own weight, but with the Holy Grail, it not only has a lot of weight in the story, I feel it also has a lot of weight within, like, towards the audience, because a lot of audience members, they probably would know about, like, the Holy Grail in, like, you know, in, like, contemporary media and, like, even, like, in, like, you know, Christian law and all that. It's like, they would know. Oh, my God, I just said Christian law. Wow. I love it. All right, no, we're keeping that. But yeah, no,
religious studies is just law studies.
Yeah, exactly. Christian law, yeah. Like, it's really cool that, yeah, they pick an artifact that, like, is probably, like, the most, like, infamous in a way in context towards, like, all the artifacts that Indy goes after in these movies. So you want to go out on a high note, you pick something like the Holy Grail. Honestly,
what could be more fitting for a franchise that is on its last installment to tackle immortality, right? That. Oh, it is very, very thematically on theme. Also, did you realize that every single artifact has been a religious artifact so far?
Yes, it has.
Isn't that interesting?
It's so cool.
What I love about that is that, like, it sort of ties in, though, with the groundedness of the mythology of these different artifacts and things. Like, because these things are all believed and could be considered truth in the eye of the beholder, depending on their faith. Like,
exactly.
And that is what grounds this. And so, that got me freaking hyped. And also the great reveal of Indy's father being missing. I got goosebumps in that time with, like, them trying to get Indy to figure this out, and also see if they can find as well the person that has gone missing looking for the Holy Grail. And he's like, and then Indy responds with something like, oh, well, you're calling up the wrong Jones. Like, my father is the only person that would go, that should be going on this mission. And he's like, he did. He's the one that's missing.
So fucking cool. And then cut to, like, him showing up at Henry's house and seeing it all ransacked, and, like, you see, like like a little bit of concern, but also, like, annoyance, because he's like, oh, he's this isn't like him. He's a bookworm. He's not a field guy. What's going on here? Like, there is annoyance, but in, like, deep down, like, you can sense that there's also, like, panic in, like, the way Indy's acting and, like, searching the house. Like, he's like, fuck, what the hell has this old man got himself into? I am worried, but I'm not going to show it.
It is the first time that it is, like, truly sort of a personal conflict that he has to... It's not just the artifact that is, like, a physical thing that he's looking for now. It's to also save his father. Like, it's... it got me hyped.
I think that's what really works for me in the context of this movie, is that, like, it feels the most, like, the journey, the hunt for this treasure feels the most personal. Like, obviously, yes, you know, like, in the other films, you know, he has to save, like, his friends, his love interests and all that, but in this one, like, he's got his family is involved now. He's got family involved, and so yeah, it feels the most personal and the most, like, dire. Like, the consequences are the most dire that they have been. If he fails, he doesn't just lose, like, his love or his friend or whatever. He loses probably, like, the only family he's got left.
Yeah, and also and someone that it's been quite established already that he doesn't have the best relationship with ever. So
exactly.
If he dies, then he has to live the rest of his life with that being the relationship that he has with his father.
Exactly. So it gives the movie a lot. So it gives like the rest of the movie a lot more weight to it, like a lot more emotional weight in terms of the journey, which I feel was kind of maybe tiny bit lacking in the first two movies. Not as a detriment. I just think it's refreshing to get like a proper emotional
motivation.
What do you call it? An emotional motivation in these in this movie compared to the first two, I reckon.
And it reflects how this is the most probably mature out of the others. With very much coming from Temple of Doom, which is the most immature out of all of them, I would say.
Yeah.
The most like sort of colourful, sort of like ride-esque one. This one, it's even. I found that you can even tell how seriously these indie films take themselves just by Indy's costume. Like in this one, he's wearing a tie as a part of his attire for a lot of the film. And then in the first one, it's almost that exact same costume but without the tie. And then in the second one, it's like this shredded, barely any of his shirts even remaining.
Yeah, just basically just like showing his bare chest and all that. So I always forgot about the fact that he wears a tie throughout most of this movie, which always I've seen. I'm like, oh yeah, what the hell? That's crazy. What the fuck?
But it's a fancy fitting attire for his first stop at the fancy luxurious Venice. Which
Venice
is unlike anything that we have seen, I think, before in an indie movie, as in location-wise.
Yes.
It's
definitely the
most built up. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, you go.
I was just gonna say it's definitely the most fancy, very almost first world kind of location that India's been in. You know, what do you call it? The most clean place that he's traveled to. You know what I mean?
This location is definitely the cleanest, as well as it's the most contemporary out of all the one. He usually goes to these ancient civilizations and locations, right? This one is functioning exactly how it would be in 1930s. And it even feels contemporary to our days now, right? It doesn't feel that much lost in the past.
I mean, I haven't been to Venice, but I'd assume Venice still acts the way that it does.
Oh, yeah, me neither. But, just reflected, you don't see people with smartphones out, but it looks like fairly similar or on par to how we sort of live our lives now.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely agree.
And this entire, sort of journey through Venice, we meet our indie girl, and I did not really like this indie girl, I've got to say.
You didn't like Dr. Schneider? You didn't like Elsa?
I did not like Elsa. It just didn't.
Now, why is that? Is it because did you not like her throughout the entire movie, or did you not like her when the twist was kind of revealed about her?
I did not like her pre-Nazi or post-Nazi. It just
interesting.
I felt like that there was not a lot of character going on there, and again, it felt too quick, and even compared to the really what sort of character quirks or characteristics does she have when you compare her to the other indie girls so far, other than her being a Nazi?
Yeah, I was gonna say she's a Nazi and she doesn't like rats.
Yeah,
that's basically it.
Where the last girl that we got in Temple of Doom, she also didn't like rats, but also didn't like any animal, and was also had a huge ego on herself. She was very princey and pompous. There was a lot more to them than this one here.
Yeah. No, look, I can kind of agree with you that she definitely is a step down from the previous two indie girls. I think what I did enjoy is that I do really enjoy the Nazi twist in this movie, because it feels almost very James Bond-esque, because a lot of the time especially in the older Bond films, a lot of the times the Bond girl would end up betraying James, and I think it was interesting to kind of have in the third film the indie girl turn sides, be a be in with the villains, which also is funny because, you know, we do have a James Bond in this movie. We have the original, we have Sean Connery, so it is a cute little, I feel like it's a cute little nod to have the Indy girl in this movie end up being a villain, being a femme fatale, as one would say, because it's very reminiscent of, like 60s era Bond, which I think is pretty cool. I don't think she's really the most well-rounded character, and I do agree there's not a lot to her. I do, however, really enjoy the Nazi twist, and I think it works in terms of, what came before it, because, if we had another just regular Bond girl that, Indy just has to save and fall in love with and have sex with and all that, it's just be a lot more been there, done that kind of meme. So I think it was interesting to, they did something a little bit different. They sacrificed her personality and, her personality and all that, and, the audience really, being, getting to know her, but at the same time, there's still a little bit of memorability to her due to what they do with her compared to the previous two Indy women.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. They do experiment with the function of her, but I feel like the actual character of her doesn't really do much for me. And and what annoys me about that is that it feels like that they could do something with that, right?
They definitely could have.
It feels like that through the entire movie, they're still trying to maintain a bit of a weird sort of sexual tension between Indy and her, but I don't really feel it, especially too at the end where Indy is going to save her and trying to sort of save her, and it feels like that he has to let go of it feels like that it's framing it like he has to let go of something or someone that he loves, where that's not really there.
It's odd, it is because I feel you can kind of see that they're trying to give her some kind of dimension with during the book burning scene, you see her crying, and there's several lines that indicate that maybe maybe isn't fully into the whole Nazi cause. She just wants the Grail. But I feel that the film maybe could have had a couple of actual scenes of conversations where we get more of a clear indication that maybe her heart is not with the Nazi regime. It's just with the Grail. We get a few lines about it, but it wasn't really enough substantially to really get us to see her as a three-dimensional character. They try, there was attempts, but more could have been done in terms of showing us that development, because they do show it, it just wasn't enough, I feel. I don't know if you noticed that and all that, but that's what I saw upon my rewatch, and I'm that's my interpretation, at least. I could be wrong, but that's my interpretation of what they kind of try to do with her after she betrays Indy.
Well, if this film was grounded, it wouldn't have all mattered anyway, because one thing that I noticed in the Venice scene, when they're all surrounded in that pool of petroleum, is that when they have that torch, it is constly dripping flame into that water.
Yeah, dude, I watched...
and if a single match, which is later thrown into the petroleum, ignites the entire tunnel, then the dripping from the torch would have surely eviscerated them. So it shouldn't even matter anyway. So because they should just be fucking dead.
You know what else doesn't make sense is when they're hiding underneath the coffin, wouldn't they still? Because isn't that whole coffin room still full of petroleum? Wouldn't they still burn up?
Oh, okay. This is my scientific defense. I think what it is that it's petroleum mixed with water, and the petroleum is on the surface. But the water underneath that is still keeping cool and stuff I don't know the exact science of it, but I feel that because it was a fire retardant thing that they're covering themselves with, then the water underneath and the petroleum that's on the surface in that coffin would not be ignited, I think.
That's your high ATAR being put to good use, Rhys.
That's my inference, because I think I could be completely wrong. I'm glad that they didn't die, and I'm glad that that's not where the movie ended. But because
exactly, no, same here.
I also do have to really admire and really love all the practical rats on this set.
Oh my God, yes.
And
So fucking gross.
I don't know if you looked into this or not, but all of those rats, so there were thousands of rats that they used, and they could not get rats from anywhere in particular. They had to breed them specifically for this because
oh wow,
yeah, so they had to breed all of these rats for this one scene, and man,
Jesus,
that is intense. That is dedication. That is like generations upon generations of rats that were birthed just for this one scene in the film. And it makes it effective because of it. So I'm glad that there are generations of Indy rats out there. And I hope that they're still going to this day.
Yeah, I hope that like Spielberg and company just like let them loose on Venice after they were finished with them. They just leave them in the cave, and then the rats just like go and invade the entire country of Italy. Just let them go free. They worked hard.
They took them all back to New York, let them go, and that's why there's more rats in New York than there are people.
Oh, yeah, true though, true.
And next stop on the journey is that we end up in Austria. My home. Well, not my home, but half of my blood coming from that location.
Ooh, I bet you felt that Austrian pride in you, didn't you, Rhys?
Oh, I really, really did. I love when they enter Austria, I've got to say. Especially that they stop at a castle right away. This awesome fucking castle. And the original plans for this sequel was actually going to be like a haunted castle mansion sort of thing. Like that's where the whole thing was going to be based.
Really?
Yeah. Instead, it just like ended up being a scene in one locale. But yeah, it was going to be. Imagine the entire thing being set in this place, and
I don't know if that would have worked for me. Honestly, I don't think Indy really belongs in like a bottle location. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you. But also this is probably my favorite set piece of the entire movie in this castle.
It is a great set piece. It is a lot of fun because like they are literally in the like basically the heart of the enemy. They're in like Nazi territory basically.
Yeah, just before World War II. Like it's so fucking cool.
Yeah, true. One of my favorite lines actually comes from this scene is when Indy and Elsa when like the Nazis are revealed in this movie. One of my favorite lines that always makes me laugh for no reason is just Indy being like, Nazis, I hate these guys. Like, just casual about it. I don't know why. The way he delivers it, and just at the very, like, it's almost like seeing, like, a neighbor. It's like the delivery is like when you would see a neighbor be like, Bill, I hate this guy. Like, just very, like, I kind of like just, like, how, like, under-delivered it is. I don't know why. It just really makes me laugh every time. It's like, oh, those Nazis. I really don't like those guys. Man, I don't know. It's something about them.
Something that I just don't like. I thought that you were gonna mention the quote where one of the Nazis goes, "Germany has declared war on the Jones boys," and that's a fucking good quote.
Oh my god, I cannot believe I forgot about that. That is a cold line right there. I love it. It's so good.
It's so freaking good. So this set piece that we're talking about, it comes just after Harrison Ford opens the scene with one of the most unspecific accents I've ever heard. I later heard that it's like a Scottish accent that he's trying to do.
Yeah. It's almost like that he's trying to emulate his dad in a way in this.
I thought that he was trying to do I thought he was doing a terrible German accent or like some sort of terrible European. To me, it kept him going on and off from different accents from all over the place. It was very unspecific and was like, oh, okay, I see why Harrison Ford doesn't do accents very often.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the whole like unspecific nature of his accent kind of works because, like, you know, Indy is kind of a buffoon. He wouldn't know how. He would. He doesn't seem like a guy that would really be like fluent in accents and all that. So it kind of makes sense why like. In the delivery, it would just sound like all muddled and like almost like, what the hell? What the fuck is he trying to do right now?
That's a good point.
I think it kind of works.
And it also confuses, like you can see that the Nazis, when they welcome him in sort of thing, well, they don't really welcome him in, but when they're there, they are very confused by it all, which I was also equally confused, is that he just sort of goes in there and just wings it, sees what happens.
And then he fucking name drops Mickey Mouse as well, which is like funny because then fucking good old Disney managed to snatch their hands up and take this series.
Well, they don't take it for another like 20 plus years, man. Just there. Maybe that's what that is what encouraged them to be like, maybe we're gonna take this. Anyway, we're introduced here to Henry Jones. We see him in the flesh, see his face, see that he's played by James Bond himself, and please, can you tell me what you like about Henry Jones? Because I'm warming up to him, but I'm not fully convinced yet.
Well, I think for me, one, obviously, I gotta give credit to Sean Connery, because, like, I think this is, like, one of my favorite Sean Connery performances, because, like, I love him as James Bond, but, like, I think seeing the way that he acts, he's almost kind of, like, he's very, you do see a lot of, like, Indy within Henry. Like, you know, he's all, like, giddy and excited when it comes to, like, you know, learning about, like, you know, the stuff that he's passionate about, because, like, Indy's passionate about archaeology, and Henry is, like, very into, like, you know, the religious aspect of, like, archaeology, especially, like, you know, spending his whole life kind of finding out the secrets of the Grail. And I think what also really works is that, like, he is, in a way, he's more kind of, he seems more level-headed in a way compared to Indy, because, like, you know, he's more older, more wiser, but also kind of still a buffoon compared to, you know, his son, Junior. But yeah, no, I think what works for me is that, like, he seems like almost more, because he's a lot more older, he's got a lot more, he's been through a lot more, and kind of has more of his head on his shoulders. He plays as a good, almost, he's kind of almost like a bit of an anti-Indiana Jones. Like, even though he's definitely out of his elements. Some would also argue the same with Indy, you know, out of their element and all that. But I think half the time, despite how obviously more out of his element Henry is, he seems a lot more like calmer and a lot more just like going with the flow type meme about this. He's like, yeah, whatever. This is just par for the course. Really keeping in good spirits about things. I think what also kind of works is that if this was played by any other actor, I think the character would have been insufferable to deal with, because he is kind of, in a way, you can kind of see Henry Jones as a bit of a liability in a sense. He's telling Indy to go to Berlin to get the diary. He's getting captured. He's, you know, being a bit of a buffoon. But I think due to Sean Connery's committed and also really funny performance in this film, I think really works, because there's something about seeing someone like Sean Connery, a man who, like, seems very, you know, like, old-fashioned and very, like, you know, Sean Connery seems like the kind of guy that'd be like, oh, women belong in the kitchen, you see, and okay. You know, very like, and very like, you know, and then in the James Bond movies, very like stone-faced, very almost non-emotive in a sense. Seeing him be almost an anti-James Bond in this movie, very emotive, very giddy, very like just like goofy, I think really works. And anyone else playing that role, I think would have been a detriment to the film and probably would have killed the film, because a lot of the film is, you know, focused on the relationship between Henry and Indy. So anyone else playing it would have killed the movie in a sense, if you get my drift.
Well, his buffoonery is definitely the most endearing part of his character to me. I think that also that he sort of his sort of seriousness on the surface that then is very like you see is not 100% true, and that he is almost as dim-witted as his son at times. Like, yeah. And this is like no better like shown than when the fire scene starts, right? When they're both tied up on a chair together, back to back, and then it's up to Henry to like get like from the lighter in his son's pocket to burn the ropes off, and he just fucks it up, burns himself, chucks it on the ground on the floor, and then that is what burns down the entire castle slowly. Is that the carpet starts to slowly set on fire, and then it spreads onto the table, and then this, and then that, and seeing the reaction of Sean Connery be like, and being embarrassed about fucking up and not wanting to reveal it to his son right away when and he's like, "How's it going, Dad?" And he's like, "Oh yes, it's going quite fine for now." That is very freaking endearing, and and shows that he is as much of a dickhead as his son is. It's fucking great.
He's also as much of a ladies' man as his son is, because as a kid, I never caught on that Henry also fucked Elsa as well as Indy did.
Yeah, I know, right? Strange love triangle.
I never caught on that Henry Jones and Indy, they're tunnel buddies, basically. So I never caught on to that as a kid. Especially
tunnel buddies, that is terrible.
When he's like, like the whole scene of when Elsa's been held at gunpoint and Henry's just like, oh, shoot her, she's a Nazi, don't save her. Like, it's so fucking cool, honestly. Like, and it's also, again, very like reminiscent. A nice little nod to his roots as James Bond. Even as an old man, he's still got it with the ladies, even if they are Nazis.
Yeah,
he's still slaying it, honestly.
Man, do you love this action scene as well? Well, this whole set piece when they're like, how they're going back and forth trying to like move away from the fire when still tied onto the chairs, and they end up in the fireplace, accidentally turning into like this sort of like weird strategy room for the Nazis. It is so freaking great. That is my highlight of the film, without a doubt.
So much fun.
And also, like, I think that the audience is sort of they're wanting more. I think that you're thirstier for these action set pieces at this point in the film because we have had quite a lot of talking and downtime. So we're like, you're hungry for it. And then it comes, and then even after the castle set piece is done, then it right away leads into another chase. Which also, that chase scene was filmed like after, like that was like an afterthought scene that they implanted in there when the production, like the whole production pretty much thought, hey, I don't think there's enough set pieces in here. It maybe is a little bit too talky. So then they just put that one in there quite last minute. And is a great scene. Has some jousting in there. Has the iconic has the iconic motorcycle with the side cart with Indy's dad in the cart. Fantastic.
I think it's also really great that like throughout like this whole sequence when we're first introduced to Henry, like especially with the first scene where Indy says "Don't call me Junior," shoots the Nazis. I love just seeing, because like Henry Jones, he's not a field man, and he's probably never seen someone die before. So just seeing like almost he's shock and like even like disappointment and just like very just like it's so messy kind of facial expressions. Like he's like so just immature in a sense, because like he's new to this. He's new to like action on the field and like what Indy does. Like this is two polar opposites of people who basically kind of almost do the same thing, like have the same kind of passion, just different kind of lines of work, if that makes sense. Indy is the field man. Henry is more the bookworm, the guy stuck in the library type meme. Which I think works for a great dynamic.
Totally. Libraries aren't safe in this movie, though, unfortunately, because we get to see a book burning. And wow, what a large scale scene! Oh my god!
No, Jesus Christ! Like I always forgot. As a kid, I do not remember ever seeing that scene.
Me too.
Rewatching it back in 2020, I was dumbfounded. I was like, "What the fuck?" There is a book burning scene, and
do you want to say it?
Yeah, and Indy gets the diary signed by Adolf Hitler.
Adolf Hitler makes a direct appearance in this film. How did I never know this? Like, I had never realized this. Maybe has this been cut out of particular versions, because it does go very hard on the Nazism. Like,
maybe.
Also, isn't 100% essential, right? Like, it feels very much like it's a bit of a speed bump on their journey. And if it was edited out, then I maybe wouldn't even notice as a child.
Like the only purpose of the scene really serves is to get the diary back, but like apart from that, it is pretty much like a non sequitur kind of scene. But I guess like you insert that in to just really kind of bring the audience back into seeing the Nazis as like the disgusting, awful villains that they are, because they're burning literature. People in the 80s, they love books. They didn't have shit else to do, so seeing their only
movies weren't around in the 80s.
Exactly. Well, not home media, at least.
What? Not VHSs?
No. I literally just corrected myself just as I said that. I literally was just like, wait, hang on a second.
That's all right. But yeah, I get you. I think it is a marvelously put together scene, right? Like you just think, oh my god, how did I overlook this? And
I know.
Like, I feel like that I haven't. It's maybe one of the most like large-scale book-burning scenes that I've seen in a film before.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, like it is, and it's very vibrant and just it's fascinating to me.
It really is.
Also, to get a close-up of Adolf Hitler and Indiana Jones coming face to face.
A cameo a meeting I never in my days thought I would ever see, but here we are. I can't wait to see epic rap battles of history do Adolf Hitler versus Indiana Jones. Makes sense.
Yeah,
come on.
It does.
Come
it
on,
does.
Come on, Nice Peter and Epic Lloyd. You know you want to do it. Come on.
And then it feels like it's very, very soon after that we end up in the desert. Like after this scene.
Yes. Oh well, hang on. We forgot about the Zeppelin scene and the plane chase race.
Oh yeah, you're right. How did I not put any of these notes down?
Which is like I'm shocked that like you forgot about that, because like that's like one of the Zeppelin conversation that they have in the Zeppelin where like they get a bit of downtime and they're talking about like their relationship. I think is like. I really enjoy that little piece of dialogue because we get an understanding of like how properly strained their relationship is and the type of person that Henry is. He tells him to like, I didn't tell you what to do. I didn't boss you around. I gave you independence, and in a way, it works as like kind of like paint. It works in a way of like showing like why Indy is the way he is, but also shows that maybe. It gives us a bit of more like it gives a bit more dimension towards Indy as well, because it shows that while he is this epic action hero and all that, he's a very the likable everyman type hero. You also get a bit of sympathy for him because he didn't exactly have the greatest home life really. Like he, in a way, almost kind of was like lived a lonely life. He had his dad, sure, but he lived a lonely life and. Yeah. I'm pretty sure they do also mention their mother dying and all that in that conversation. From what I remember, it might have been later on, but they mentioned that Henry's obsession with finding the Holy Grail, not led to the mother's death, but Indy states that mum didn't understand it either, and it's in Indy's eyes that is the case, but. She understood, but then later on, is explained that she kept her disease from Henry, which was probably because of Henry's obsession with the Holy Grail. So that thus creating a rift between Henry and his wife, and then subsequently Henry and his son, which also paints us a picture of how that while this is a very important quest to find the Holy Grail, it's also a detriment towards Henry Jones's character, like in the context of the movie, because it shows that it is almost an obsession with him. It's basically consumed him, and in some ways. No better than someone like Belloc's obsession with the Ark, or Donovan and Elsa's obsession with finding the Holy Grail. Like it almost paints him as a bit of a reflection towards the villains a little bit, with this obsession with finding this ancient treasure. In a sense, that's my interpretation of that conversation, and like just Henry Jones's character and why he is wanting this Grail. But it's also for no. I'm talking a lot. I'm sorry.
That is an in-depth investigation into this.
I just had one more point that I want to make, is that it's being done for noble reasons, because another great piece of dialogue that I love from Sean Connery's delivery is when they're on the motorcycle right before they get to Berlin, explaining that not only is this a powerful thing, but it's not just any old artifact, it's a race against evil. It is a matter of life and death. Like really, really hones in the stakes of finding this piece of treasure, because if the Nazis have it, everything's over. It really gives a sense of weight towards like the actual treasure itself. We talked about the weight, like the emotional weight of this movie, but now we also get the sense of almost finality when it comes to them finding this artifact in this film, because if they have eternal life, there's no going back.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I can add anything to do with that scene. I think I can say then that the action is good when they fly off with the plane.
Yeah. I will say the plane sequence, it's fine. Some of the green screen is a little bit off, I will admit.
It's a bit shoddy.
Yeah,
I think I like the concept.
I can't hate it.
I think I honestly like the concept more than the execution of it. If that makes sense.
No, I completely get you. I'm the same.
And then we end up in the desert. And then we
end up in the desert. Then we do.
And this, to me, doesn't feel a whole lot different to the desert sort of chase scene from the first movie. Do you get me here? I think that these blend into each other quite similarly.
Yes. This is definitely a almost lesser version of the desert chase in the first movie. There are some parts that set it apart. We get Salah actually, being a little bit a part of the set piece.
Yes, yeah.
We also get a tank as well, which, is always very cool. We get that.
I really like this shot where Indy is almost stuck between like a tank and like a wall, like a natural wall. And like he's having to sort of like lift himself up when there's all like the wall is almost collapsing and it's like about gonna crush him, but it's just a pipe that is like keeping him from being crushed. That's quite good. Like there's a lot of good things here, but it just isn't. It isn't what the first one is and doesn't offer too much freshness to it in comparison to that first one.
It definitely feels a lot more slower than the desert chase in the first one, I feel.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. I think that the best thing about this this sort of desert chase scene is when it ends and it's almost this fake out death of Indy. And everyone thinks that he's gone, that he stayed on the tank too long when it fell off the cliff and sort of like exploded. And you see this nice scene of regret from Henry where he looks over, thinks that his son is dead, and you see that he regrets not having given him the time of day because he can't now. And
it's so powerful.
It mirrors exactly the emotions that Indy had at the start of the movie when he finds out that his dad is in danger. Like that is a very good moment. That's where I felt the most sort of like turning point between Indy and his father.
Yeah, and also even the scene where they reunite and all that, we get a beautiful moment of just we get a beautiful hug and a moment of relief and just almost euphoria because he's just so relieved that his son's alive, and like we get like because like throughout the movie they're very like like bantering off one another and all that, but we get like a genuine moment of love and seeing Indy kind of like just like really just like smile and just like really enjoy this hug. Like he's exhausted, but we also see like a bit of relief in his eyes. He's like, oh my god, yes, I get some affection from my dad, because in a way that's something that Indy really wants in this movie. He just wants the respect and admiration of his father, which I think is one of the best. My favorite parts about this movie is that you see that he just wants his dad to see him as almost like an equal, like as a capable equal almost. Because throughout most of the movie, one of my favorite dynamics is that throughout the first half of the movie, Harrison Ford, he's doing his Indiana Jones cool guy thing. The second Henry is brought in, he almost kind of reverts back to that of a bumbling child. He's very like grumpy. He's like, Dad, like an annoyed teenage son. Did you kind of notice like that kind of like shifting character?
Yeah, totally. And that feels very human, right? I think that everyone is sort of like that. Like their dynamic does change when they're around someone that they're trying to get approval from, and when they're someone that they're trying to get approval from, and someone that they feel like that they need to almost sort of. They have to be someone else around them, and it makes no more sense than in this situation right here, with having the sort of reuniting and close bonding of Indy and Henry at this point. It perfectly sets up this final climax where they do get to the cave and find the Holy Grail, right?
Yeah,
it sets it up perfectly because
it does.
Then when Henry is shot by the main villain in this, which I don't even know their name because
Donovan.
pretty forgettable villain, honestly.
Yeah, I really wanted to... I'm glad you brought this up because I really wanted to talk about this real quickly, is that Donovan is easily the weakest villain out of the original trilogy. He's basically just almost... Because, like, he's basically just a shittier version of Belloc. Like, Belloc, great, well-rounded villain, perfect reflection of Indy. And Mola Ram, there's not really that much of a connection between him and Indy, but, like, you remember Mola Ram, like, from his
he's
attire.
Got the aesthetics, he's got the aesthetics going for him.
Exactly. The only thing I remember about Donovan is that he's played by a Game of Thrones actor, and because some of his line delivery is really fucking weird in this movie. Like some of his enunciate, I can't really think of examples, but and I can't really imitate it. But like, from what I noticed is that like a lot of his delivery is just very bizarre to me. I don't know why. It almost felt like almost ADR in a way, but I know it's probably not. I don't know. It was very like every time I watch the movie, I'm always like, oh yeah, he sounds fucking weird. I forgot about that.
Also, Donovan is the second double cross that we get in like after Elsa double crossing, and then there's not much weight there because it's sort of like I don't give a shit about you. Like but when it's revealed that he's a villain, I'm like, okay, that is all. I'm not like, oh my god, no,
it's
they're
almost
friends
like
that I really cared about.
It's almost like I would have just preferred like that Nazi colonel that was really eager to kill Indy and Henry in during the castle sequence. I would just rather it just be him and Elsa, because at least like I remember what he looks like. I remember like the full Nazi outfit and those fucking and that freaky face of his. I remember him. During the tank sequence. I don't remember this dickhead Donovan. Like what? He just wears a suit. He shoots Henry. Shooting Henry Jones. Only memorable thing he's done. Oh, and then also the comeuppance that he gets later in the film.
Yeah. But like, and then he then shoots Henry and gives these nice stakes for then. Indy has an even newer motivation for why he then wants to go and find this Holy Grail and then heal his father. Like,
yes, real sense of urgency.
And I really love seeing Indy going on by himself, completing these trials for the Holy Grail. That is nice. And you very rarely see Indy by himself, it feels. Like, he's always usually got someone with him, and now at the tip end of the trilogy, we see him having to like be completely independent and get these trials done just with himself. And and they do test him to his limits and not with a friend. It's great. I really, really love this.
My favorite part of that whole sequence is the leap of faith sequence.
Yes.
Oh my fucking god! For years, I always thought it was a genuine invisible bridge. As a kid, I always thought it was like a genuine invisible bridge. The fact that it's a forced perspective bridge, so fucking cool to me. Oh my lord! And just the scene of like him actually like taking that step, and the music swelling up when he actually is on the bridge. Absolute chills down my spine. Absolute chills, my brother.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. All of these trials have, like, something to them, and it is a very, very compelling scene. And then it even, like, and doesn't slow down from that moment, because then he finds the alignment of cups, one of which is the Holy Grail, with then the guarding knight. How, like, I always found this guarding knight very, very interesting, that, like he has supposedly been there for thousands of years, right?
Yeah.
And is there to sort of almost like a little frame. I think it gives it a lot more weight than if they entered this room and there was not anyone else in there. Like it's almost like they're the magician that is explaining the rules of this game that you need to follow. Like it's very cool.
It's also very good that they don't make, because like, you know, you would expect, like, you know, going into this room of the Holy Grail, like, then maybe there'd be, like, a final boss in this room. Because in the Lego Indiana Jones video game, you fight the knights in that, in the game. You fight it. So then when I watch the movie and you don't fight him and he's actually a friend, I was so, like, weirded out by it. I'm like, what the hell? This isn't how the game told me it was supposed to go. What the fuck?
Lego Indiana Jones lied to me.
I know, it's heartbreaking, but it really works because, you know, the Indy's already gone through so much to get to this grail. Like, we don't need, like, a big boss battle when he gets to the cup. The real battle is the battle of choice, the battle of finding what cup it is, and how great is it that they're even though he's in the room where the Holy Grail is located, there is still one final test. There is still one final test of brain power where he has to find the cup, because any one of the other ones will take life. You can only choose wisely.
So good. And I love the choice of like how so firstly Donovan goes for it, and he then grabs this very sort of lush gold with like gems or rubies or something like around the rim.
A cup fit for kings.
Yeah, takes a cup fit for kings because he thinks, of course, that's going to be the Holy Grail. And then takes a sip, and you see the rapid aging death, which is done so fucking well. It really reminds me of one of those videos that you find on YouTube of like fruit decaying in like a time lapse.
Yes,
it's great.
It's so fucking gross. I love it. Oh my lord.
And the way
cool.
that it's like, I love how this series, with these really sort of confronting brutal death scenes, that it doesn't hide it from you. It's center stage and like forces you to look at it. I love that. I really, really love that. It's got balls to do that.
Oh my lord, yes. Oh my lord, it's so fucking cool. And then you know, having that brutal death happen, it gives us a lot more weight as to Indy needs to make this right choice. And then you know, showing that, like, you know, he knows his research and all. He doesn't let the idea of greed get to him, because, you know, Donovan picked the fancy cup, picked the cup of kings, because he sees Christ as almost like a royal figure. So like he'll take the most fancy looking glass. But then Indy, knowing the person,
he knows JC. They're good
knowing
mates.
the idea and image of Christ is that he was a humble man. So finding this very dirty, almost rusted cup, the cup of a carpenter, works perfectly. Obviously, it works perfectly for him and in the movie.
It's so good, and it works. And it works. We don't see a rapidly aging in Indiana Jones. That takes a few more years and 2 more movies for us to see that.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
And then we do see that the whole thing, the whole cave then starts to collapse, because after, you know, like Henry is healed and all these sort of things happen, then greed gets to them again. Well, not gets to these two, but it gets to Elsa, because you're not allowed to leave the cave with the Holy Grail. It needs to remain in there. And it makes sure that it does, because Elsa goes past the seal that she's not supposed to pass with the Holy Grail in her hands, and then everything starts collapsing and bumbling down again, and it all goes to shit because of greed. That's the end.
Exactly.
The end sort of like value of all these movies, right? Is that even though they were searching for treasure, it's the greed that kills you.
Especially with the first, the original trilogy. Yeah, greed ends up being the undoing of each and every villain in these movies, which you know, very, very consistent, very appreciative of that. I feel. I think
it still continues as well, but yeah, you're right.
What's it called? And we also even get after Elsa, falls to her death after, trying to reach for the cup, we get a nice little moment of a nice ending of Henry Jones's character arc, where he lets go of the thing that he sought after his entire life, because he realized, because it's kind of cliche, kind of cheesy, but the real treasure is his son, who he has been on this adventure with. He says, because Indy tries to reach for it, and Henry, looking at him, says, "Indiana, just let it go," which is great, because that is the first time I feel that Henry calls him Indiana instead of Junior.
It is.
Which shows that he now sees his son as his equal and as a capable man. And it is so fucking good. And it also is a great way of finishing up Henry Jones's character arc, because, like I said, he no longer needs this treasure because he has everything he wants.
The obsession is gone. The obsession's
Exactly.
gone. He's no longer chasing this carrot that's tied to his head because all he needs is family.
Oh god. Yes, thank you, Vin Diesel. Thank you for that.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, my voice can definitely go as deep as Vin Diesel's.
Family.
No, I can't even. Won't even try. And then you see the crew, the boys, ride off into the sunset. What a way to finish off this trilogy! Is that?
Oh my lord, yes.
It's pretty beautiful, and it was very much the intention by Spielberg was for that to be the final shot of the Indiana Jones
especially
IP.
with like the main theme playing in full during that ending sequence. It very just like closing the book on a practically perfect trilogy until 2008.
Oh well, so at the point that we won't go too much into it, but like I wouldn't say that these are perfect. Like I would say that maybe Raiders is, but I wouldn't really say that these are that perfect. Like,
Okay, maybe I'm overstating a little bit, but I think still, in terms of at least the first three movies, I think they are all, issues aside, I think they're all consistently great pieces of cinema that I have been so honored to revisit, honestly.
That's fair. I liked this. I think that it is exactly how this trilogy should have ended, right? Riding into the sunset.
Very, very commonly stated opinion that, everyone agrees that, like, if it had ended here, the world would have been probably a better place, honestly. But who knows?
Well,
we might love the next two movies. We don't know.
Yeah. Do you think that... I have a question for you, Kane. Do you think that Indy is a good archaeologist?
Now, not really. No, because he.
So I did realize that, like, as he's leaving this cave, like, every fucking place he goes to no matter what it is, no matter what the reason is, but destruction does follow him, and every site that he explores ends up fucking busting in on itself. Like, the mines at the in the Temple of Doom, those are just like torn to shit. The bridge is torn asunder because of him. Like, how also in like the Temple of Doom scenario, like, how are they going to go across that chasm ever again? Even at the start of the first Indiana Jones movie, like that. Sort of
the jungle temple.
The jungle temple, that all just comes down to shit. Like everywhere that he goes, he just destroys the place.
Everywhere he goes, destruction follows.
Yep, exactly. It might not be intentional, but it happens. It happens.
It is noticeable. It is very noticeable.
Yeah.
So good character, yes. Good archaeologist, probably not.
Yeah. Are you happy to close the book on The Last Crusade?
I would be very happy with wrapping this one up.
Okay,
and
final takes then.
Well, my final take is that The Last Crusade, it's a perfect subtitle.
It's the last movie in the trilogy.
It's a perfect subtitle because it should have been the last Indiana Jones movie. Goodbye, original 80s indie movies. Hello, old man Indy.
Don't forget to check out our Facebook page at MarathonMeOfficial, all one word, and our Instagram, MarathonMe_official, to keep up to date on the podcast. And hey, if you want to get into contact with us, email us at marathonmepodc, yes, the letter C, @gmail.com. Like podcast without the arse.